Peace is truly empowering, everyone. Nubian Divine, Nubian News with the Z. Been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a dope thought to think to. What's up, y'all? If you are new to my vibration, welcome. I'm Nubian. For those of you who are familiar, what's up, y'all? OMG. All right, so look, I am getting a download right now, okay? And I want to share it with some of the most divine, beautiful beings that are out there in this plane of existence. Now, hopefully this message will reach the masses without too many people being in their feelings and wanting to take their ball and jump off the basketball court because you don't know how to play ball. So if you're going to be sensitive, I automatically want to warn you up front, you may want to go ahead and take your ball now and walk away. Because I'm telling you, all the cuts and scrapes and bruises that you have gotten in life have already been trippy thus far. I can imagine how much more trippy they're going to be if you are too sensitive to listen to a vibration from me. So with that being said, first and foremost, I give homage to all of my ancestors, my way showers, and my guides for helping me to give you the best energetic insight in regards to what is happening right now within the lives of so many that are rocking the same mentality of understanding where I'm coming from right now. And so it is. So look, I don't even know where the story is going to go. I just know that I need to tell it. Many of you are in a position right now where you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You're worried, you're scared, you're fearful. You don't know how to rob Peter to pay Paul, to take care of your babies. Many of you are in this position. Many of you are not. Many of you are doing just great. What's deep about it is there's so much that I've been seeing on my journey. And in my journey, it was not about what's going on in Johnny's life or Joe's life or Tina's life or Tracy's life. It was all about my life. Because Johnny and Joe and Tina and Tracy weren't there for me. I had to be there for me. I had to be there for me when nobody else was there for me. I had to pick myself up when I was abused in abusive relationships. I had to pick myself up when I was homeless, living in homeless shelters and no one would help me and my babies. I had to do that for me. I had to find a way out for me. I couldn't blame what happened to me on my mother, on my father, on my sister, on my cousins. I couldn't blame them. And if I found myself at one point in time blaming them, it wasn't because of what they did. It's because of what I lack within myself that I was refusing to see because of my own stubbornness, because of my own hard-headedness. I know the game is real. I was accused and committed of crimes that I did not commit. Not one lawyer would come to my beck and call and help me, although I had documented proof, signed off by many witnesses and many banks that I still have to this day, that I own The very thing that they were accusing me of stealing. While I watched my baby be snatched away from me. Taken away from me while I was 7 months pregnant. They took my baby and buried her alive at 7 years old inside of a sandbox where all of her peers laughed at her. And while the teachers held up papers, newspapers, and said, "Look, your mommy's a thief." While public defenders and children protective services came in and threatened my child at 7 without an attorney by her side and said, "You will never see your mommy again if you don't tell us where that paperwork is that she has hidden, that is showing proof that she owns the land." I was locked away in a mental institution where they try to hide and cover up my truth, my story. When they muzzled my mouth and they wouldn't let me speak in court. When nobody was there for me. I had to be there for myself. I had to give birth to my baby inside of a hospital while they stood over me and ate my food off of my tray and called me niggers. I came out of having a C-section and I couldn't take any medicine whatsoever because I was afraid of my life. But yet I still had to hold my head up. Locked away in a mental institution. And when I was locked away in a mental institution, evaluated for 90 days. Not allowed to see my baby. For a whole year after my baby was born. Don't tell me about a struggle. Never accused of nothing in my life. Worked for law firms. Grew up in the police academy. Girl Scout. Great grades in school. Grew up in a great family. Anything that they could try to find on me, they couldn't find nothing. But yet, they went to make up something. Not telling the newspapers that I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Major Taylor. All those Major Taylor trails that you see all throughout your cities. All those bicycles that you see throughout your cities. My grandfather. My great-great-great-great-grandfather. Our family has never been reprimanded. Never, ever, ever received the benefit of my great-great-great-grandfather starting the United States Army's 1st Transportation Department via bicycle. Back in the day, they wouldn't give Indigenous African descendants, they would not give them money for fighting in the war. They would give them land. So they gave my great-great-great-grandfather land that was signed off by President Ulysses Grant through a military script act to his family and his bloodline forevermore, with all the minerals and everything. But yet, when I stepped forward to claim the land, I was dogged, mistreated, locked away in a jail, hidden away in a mental institution. Not one attorney in the entire state would touch my case. I was granted the right in jail to go to the law library, but yet still denied my rights and never ever granted one day in the law library in jail and still had to fight my case, facing 20 years. Fought my case by myself, with the memory of what I knew within me to just be simple common sense. Malicious prosecution it was. Malicious prosecution. To watch the entire state make a mockery of my life, snatching my babies away from me, and then proceed to muzzle my story. And then the one man that comes along that travels throughout the world, blonde hair, blue eyes, Lawless in America, the owner of Lawless in America, goes in to capture the story only to find himself missing till this day. Deep. So we all been done a certain type of way within the system. But one thing that I've learned in the Temple of Baal, even growing up Christian, was Jesus didn't come save me. It was the awakening of my Christ consciousness that saved me. Pretty deep. Because everybody want to argue the semantics of who Jesus is, who the Christ was, who Yeshua is. Heru, same story, passed down. Time after time after time again, everybody wants to argue the semantics, but yet no one takes time out to argue the semantics within self. I've been homeless. I've been hungry. I've been tired. I've been looked down upon. I've been hurt, harmed, and injured by so many different people outside of me. But yet I've also come to the conclusion that I was not gonna fold there. I was gonna use all of that pain and capitalize off of that pain by making a better life for my children and showing them a different example. Being the change in me in which I wish to see in this world. And that's where my journey began. So deep. How I look around me and so many people are fighting. They're arguing. They're not getting along. They hate each other. I go to a community meeting within my so-called Black community, and I watch how not only others treat the indigenous African descendants who have over 3 trillion a year spending power, but I watch how indigenous African descendants treat each other. How they fail to have knowledge of self, but yet put themselves in a box and want to argue, I'm black, I'm white, I'm yellow, I'm red, I'm mixed, I'm Indian. I'm Nubian. I'm spiritual. And one thing I've learned about being spiritual is that you cannot be spiritual without the spiritual, without the ritual. I have seen a church and a liquor store on every corner. I grew up in the church. I look around me and I see so many different communities prospering, except the indigenous African descendants. So I said, well, what's going on with this? I was never taught about my ancestors. Until one day, I met one of the most beautiful souls that I could have ever met in my whole entire life, that taught me about my ancestral history, how to build a relationship with my ancestors. And from there, my ancestors began to show me how to love myself. My ancestors began to show me that the reason that the indigenous African descendants are dying off because of lack of knowledge of self and because of lack of love for self. So the sisters don't get along with each other because they're afraid of the other sister looking prettier than them or smarter than them, afraid that they're going to take their man, or they're going to sleep with their man. Worried about everything except what we should be worried about. And then when we all have businesses, we don't support each other's businesses. And then when someone else is doing great, we want to be jealous of them. It's pretty deep because I just came from this past weekend sitting at a meeting, a full-fledged all Hispanic meeting for 6 hours, where I sat there within 4 of those hours and they only spoke Spanish only. Now don't get me wrong, I understood a little bit of it, but a good majority of it I did not understand. So if they were talking about me, I wouldn't have known, nor would it have mattered to me. Why? Because I wasn't there for that. When I went there, I had one goal in mind, and that one goal was to be successful. So I invited 4 indigenous African descendants to come with me, come see the vision, come see my dream. I have several opportunities that I'm a part of in my life because I've taken my talent and I've been able to monetize my talent and take care of me and my babies. We don't get to depend on the governmental systems. So we have no choice but to monetize our talents, because I was told that your gift shall make room for you, and what I've been shown is that that is very true. No one's going to give you a handout in life. It's up to you. So I'm sitting amongst a meeting of Hispanics that are only speaking Spanish, and I'm sitting there and I'm smiling and I'm just cheesing and I'm smiling, and all I saw was opportunity. Why? Because I paid attention to as how they work like ants. Not only do they work like ants, we're here now, we're talking about the Aztec Indians. So here it is. I'm watching their work ethics. And as I watched their work ethics, before everyone left that row, every single piece of trash was picked up off that row. Nobody sat their trash there and waited for someone else to pick it up. At the end of the meeting, everyone branched off into their groups and began to discuss what their plan is and how they were going to go make money for their family and how they were going to come together and bond and build. Everyone worked like ants. When I went over to the circle that I was a part of, the group that I was a part of, it was pretty deep. Because the group, everybody greeted me. From seeing me again, only the second time, they greeted me as if they were greeting me for the first time ever. And here it is, I'm saying to myself, well, I'm pretty successful at what it is that I do already in my other business. But yet, to me, it was an Amway product. And yet, it was a no-brainer to me to know that I will go out to Costco, I will go to Target, I can go to any other store and buy toilet paper and soap for the rest of my life, and I will never receive a money check back in return to be able to recycle the money within my family to keep my money recycled. But a millionaire thinks like that. A trillionaire thinks like that. So I think like that. My point is, when I invited 4 indigenous African descendants to come with me, no one saw the vision. Everyone wanted, I'll be there, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna come. Nobody showed up. When I called, not only did nobody show up, but I looked up and saw my calls were being ignored, but yet at the same time my calls being ignored, 3 minutes prior and 8 minutes after, selfies were being posted on social media. So I said, it's all good. I'm not going to beg anyone to come with me to the bank, kicking or screaming. If no one sees a dream, I see the dream. I come from being homeless. I come from living in the hood. Although I grew up in an upper middle class family, I was never handed one thing. And because I was never handed one thing, I'm grateful for it. I don't blame my parents and sit there and say, well, you gave my sisters everything, but you never gave me nothing. I don't sit there and complain about none of that. Why? Because I don't have a choice but to be successful. Failure is not an option for me. I may be a single mother, but not only do I homeschool my children, and I understand the semantics of homeschooling my children, but my children are already 5 and 6 and 10 years advanced in the average grade school child. And not only that, with my 8-year-old, while children are watching cartoons, she's creating her own cartoons, which is already out. My oldest, very beautiful soul. My middle, very beautiful soul. My youngest, very beautiful soul. My middle has been working since 2 weeks old on Crossing Jordan. Crossing Jordan, she also played the little girl on That's So Raven. She played Raven's daughter. My little 8-year-old has been selling crystals since the age of 3. Now they have their own invention where they sell their own little products. So they're entrepreneurs. Why? Because I take time out and I spend time with my children and I show them their brilliance. And I highlight their brilliance through love, not anger, not through rage, not taking my day out on my child. I'm not saying that I'm the most perfect parent in the world. I've made my mistakes. But in those spaces of making my mistakes, I have realized that people will be quick to judge you and come after you for the mistakes that you make for your child. That's because they're so busy trying to point out your mistakes instead of looking at the mistakes within themselves. And what is so deep and what's so powerful about what's happening in this hour is here I am. I had to put my way through college by stripping my way through college. People look down on me. But yet here I am sitting here in the US with over 5 different college degrees. 5. And to this day, I have never ever been able to use one of those degrees because I was never hired in corporate America to work one of those degrees. Did I let that stop me? No. But what truly, truly pains me is to see a race and a culture of people that hate on their sister, hate on their brother because they have no knowledge of self. To see the masculine energy in the community try to overpower and overdominate the feminine energy within the community. Because the masculine energy has become so feminized and so sensitive that the masculine energy wants to downgrade the feminine energy. Like, who does she think she is? She don't need to talk like that. Like, does she not know she's trying to be a man? Why does she have to be a man? Because she has power and authority, because she has knowledge of self. So you know how many meetings I went to of power players? All throughout Chicago, I've seen some of the most major power players. One of my master teachers, a Dogon, one of them. What was so deep about it was those were all schools of thought, even to the phase of me coming down the pipeline of Christianity when I first walked away from the church. And I said, let me make sure that I'm following the right religion, which is Latin for religion, which means to regulate and to bind by. What is binding me? What am I regulated by? And that's when I realized I had no knowledge of self, so I went on my own quest for identity. In my phase of my quest for identity, I was learning, and I have learned, that my sister's jealousy of me was because of her lack of love for herself. The indigenous African descendant, and not just the indigenous African descendant, it could be any color all over the planet, upset and angry and hate on the younger generation because they feel threatened, because they feel like they're not pretty enough, or they're not good enough, or their man's going to look at the younger generation. And the younger generation is left out there by themselves, and they just need somebody to teach them. So they don't have anyone to teach them, so they're left to teach themselves. And then when they look for love in a man, then they get dogged, they get abused, they get mistreated. And then when they get mistreated, they have no one to turn to. And then everyone wants to laugh at them or talk about them or look down on them because now they had a baby for love, because they just wanted someone to love them. So here it is. We have the movie Predator that's out right now, right? And the encoding and the decoding of the spiritual meaning of the Predator is, if you look at the Predator, what it was saying is that these beings, these melanated beings, are evolving. We are now in the new earth. Many have no clue what that means. We have already stepped into a paradigm shift where there's already over 500,000 different cryptocurrencies right now that are being used on the stock market. The dollar's already gone. But yet, many don't see the big picture because we're so used to holding on to something and not letting something go, afraid of evolution, afraid of evolving, sitting around and fighting and arguing and fussing amongst one another instead of building, while every other nationality, culture, and race is building. I'm still trying to wrap this around my mind. I'm trying to wrap this around my mind because it was even so deep that the judgment that has come upon the indigenous African descendant community don't even realize that majority of them aren't even African. You're Indian. And then you can't even call yourself Indian or indigenous African descendant. What about a sentient being? What about that part of the game? What are your talents? What are your gifts? What are your abilities? What were you created for? We are all one big piece to this puzzle. And the point in the first place was for all of us to bring our piece to the puzzle to create the most beautiful world, in which we have yet to see. But we can't see it because we don't understand knowledge of self. We don't see the beauty within ourselves. So we sit around and blame and judgment and anger and disappointment. And we say the white man's doing it to us, or the government doing it to us, or look at the Illuminati, they trying to hide something from us, or look at all the Mexicans, they coming in, they taking all the jobs, or look at all the Chinese, you see they here now, they coming over, they already bought the US, they already taking it over from here. What about you? What have you done for self? When's the last time you read a book? Did you not know that information is the new money? The reason that the indigenous African descendant community is failing is because of your thoughts. Why is there so much killing amongst the land? Because the parents had a calling on their life and the parents walked away from that call. And because they walked away from that call, their children is also bearing the blunt of the reality and paying for the pain in which the parent has brought upon themselves. Because now officially your bloodline is tainted and cursed for the simple fact that you failed to see that you cursed yourself by not loving yourself, by coming into this plane of existence with a contract to make this world a better place, to change this world, but yet you refuse to change yourself. So now the planet is rebuking any type of cancerous energies from out of this existence that refuses to love themselves. The world is not in trouble. The earth is not in trouble. It's been here for billions of years. It's the people. It's the people. Very profound that I feel like one of the most luckiest beings in all of existence. I have an invention coming out. Not bragging on myself, I'm just showing you an example, so don't take it that way. My invention is called New Jack. My invention is created, and if you look out for it, I'm not going to say it now because it's still in the process of going to over 5,000 different stores throughout the world. 2 different books coming out. Created my own deck of oracle cards. Also, I refuse to sell my soul, so I put out my own songs and my own music under Nubian Divine. Also, I write my own music. Everything's under McJayla Entertainment Publishing, which belongs to me and my children. Everything's copywritten. Everything's owned by a state in-house. I don't have to reach outside of me to pay someone else to use their name to protect my stuff when I am responsible for my own autonomy. So many people are walking around saying peace to the gods, but it's rare you hear anyone say peace to the goddess. Do you know why they say, "In God we trust"? There's coding in that. Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution states that judges are to uphold the estates and the trust. What is a trust? You are the trust. What is a state? You are the walking estate. That is your whole entire makeup, your being. That's you. But because you have no knowledge of self, you can't see the bigger picture. Why do they say "In God we trust" written on all the money? Because money is God. People have made money their God. Money, what is money? It's a current. That's what they call it, currency. So there's over 500,000 different types of cryptocurrency. Everyone, all of the world already uses this cryptocurrency and these different types of Bitcoin cryptocurrencies. But less than 2% of the population here in the lands of the US uses or knows what it is or even has attempted to look into it, although you've heard about it. Everybody wants to wait for somebody else to do it first. Let's see who falls first. Let's see who bumps their head first. Then we can laugh at them and say, I told you so. Based off of what? Off of what somebody else told you? Did you do your own research? So here it is. I look on social media and I see a post that says, are Black people ever going to do what we need to do to help each other and build as a nation? Or we all just going to sit here and talk about it? 182 likes on that one post. I said, okay, beautiful. Here's a solution. So I post a picture of my own cryptocurrency that I have been granted the rights of passage and the privilege of being the owner of my own Bitcoin. Not purchasing the Bitcoin, but the actual owner. Maybe 1 or 2 likes. So here's a solution. But yet no one sees the picture. Why? Because it's Black owned. Or should I say it's Nubian owned? Nubian to me means the original new beings. Nubian divine. A new divine being. Knowledge of self is key. And even knowing that knowledge of self is key, there's a sleep that's over everyone's eyes, where everyone has these scales over their eyes. I sat in meetings amongst power players all over the world, especially here in Chicago. And in these meetings, here it is, I would have to slam my hand on a desk and a table to be able to speak up. And once I spoke up, I was able to get the respect that I had to earn. But then all of a sudden I looked around And all of the women were at the table selling things and at their booth selling things. And then all of a sudden began to hate or get mad or get jealous or begin to roll their eyes. Why? I could not understand that. But yet, as I have been cultivating my journey, I have learned that it does not matter what your color is, what your background is, what your race is. You could be the most beautiful supermodel on the planet. But I can assure you, the reason that the eldest woman stands there next to the most beautiful supermodel and does not feel intimidated is because she have learned on her journey to love herself. A supermodel would never intimidate her because she's already been down that path and gotten to a place of hurt and pain where she had to learn to love herself. And that's why everyone embraced grandma so much and great-great-grandma so much. And this is who they call the wise and why they respected the grays of the elders. But now, no one even knows the importance of doing that own inner work and healing yourself and loving yourself and putting yourself in a position where you don't put yourself in a position to give all of your energy away to someone who is emotionally unavailable to you and who is emotionally unavailable for you. And then when they're not there for you to cater to your emotions, then you're mad, you're sad, you're hurt, you're angry, then you're disappointed. People come along to show us a lesson about who we truly are. If we weren't so busy pointing the finger at others about who we truly are, then we would be able to see our true inner beauty within ourselves. Knowledge of self is key. And back to what I was saying about the predator. The way the predator was coded was that there is an entire new spiritually evolved being that is here now. Do you know who that is? And why a specific race of indigenous African descendants are dying off? Just like at one point in time you used to see Indians everywhere, now you don't really see any Indians at all anymore. The indigenous African descendant race is dying off, and everyone is saying the solution is polygamy. You're creating more of the same if that polygamous family have not done that inner work. Then you're just creating more of the same of the bloodline that is still causing more of the taintedness that has come upon the land like a big, fat, cancerous disease. Because no one has done that inner work. So the pain has been passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation because no one has faced who they truly are in the mirror. We will wake up every morning, we'll brush our teeth, we'll wash our face, we'll put on deodorant, but no one stares himself in the eye and say, I love you. If nobody else loves you, I love you. If no one else gets it, I get it. No one's taking care of their health anymore. So the older generation looks younger than the younger generation. And the food has become so processed that even the minds and the mentalities of people around you have become so processed. And then here it is that we teach a child to walk and talk before the age of 2. And then when they get to 2 years old, they start running around playing. And you tell them, child, go somewhere, sit down, shut up, be quiet. But yet you fail to know that the children are surrounded by angels. The children are the ancestors returned. The children are the wise. Every single thing that we're doing in this life, we are to be building. We are to be building for the next generation. But yet everyone wants to leave their child at home so they can go out and club and party and try to hook up with a guy or hook up with a girl. But yet you haven't taken care of your child. Or you haven't seen your child because you're mad at their mom or you're mad at their dad. Or you're mean to your son because he reminds you of his father. And you don't come see your daughter because she looks too much like your ex who you hate. And then we all have to reflect back on our own inner pain of what we seen as children growing up. And then we all promise ourselves, when I grow up, I'm never going to have my children in that situation. I'm never going to have my family in that situation. But yet we find ourselves still repeating the same pattern over and over and over again. And then we also find ourselves in a position of no knowledge of self. So what I have found in my journey, that it does not matter what your race is. We can argue the semantics all day. But what's fact is fact. It doesn't matter how much money that you have in the bank if you have no knowledge of self. Because no knowledge of self is just going to cause you to drink and smoke and be merry and party and still be drinking and burying away your pain. The true revolution is a spiritual revolution. And a spiritual revolution is when you have really truly done that work so much within yourself that you refuse to give yourself anything less than what it is that you know that you deserve. And that is first happiness within self. And how can you possibly expect someone else to love you when you don't love yourself? And then you want to blame someone else outside of you for coming along and being that reflection of you, because we are all the same. We're just an extension of each other. And your vibration draws in the frequency of whatever it is that is coming from your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul. This is why they say birds of a feather flock together. Are you a chicken on the ground pecking, looking down at the ground? With the other chickens hating? Or are you a condor and an eagle and you're flying above all that? And you're stepping away from negative people, places, and things that don't serve your highest good. But first and foremost, you have to stop and think. What is the cultivation of my highest good? What type of example am I setting for my children? What type of example am I setting for myself? When's the last time you took care of your parents, went to go see your parents, went to go see your seniors in the nursing homes that you somehow seem to have forgotten? Very interesting, because I'm not even from Chicago. But I met one of the most beautiful souls in spirit that anyone could have ever met in their life, Peb Ali. Peb Ali marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, for those of you that don't know who Peb Ali is. And I met Peb Ali a year before his demise. And a few months before his demise, all of a sudden, I noticed that he was in a nursing home, even after putting up so much curriculum all throughout Chicago. School curriculum in every school, a very wise man. And what was so profound about it, when I would go see Peb in his nursing home, he would tell me that his so-called friends would come see him for maybe a half hour, maybe they'd sit for an hour. And then they would take off and just leave him. But I would sit there for 5, 6, 7 hours, 10 hours, a whole day if I had to, long enough to notice bed bugs, long enough to notice the nurse from his room stole his credit card and took all his money off his credit card. So he made me power of attorney. As he made me power of attorney, he also gave me his entire insurance policy once his demise hits. But what I did was, I took that money, made a dispute from his bank, and got that money back and paid for all the equipment in his home to help prepare him to get him back to his house. Also, brought in his son that he hasn't seen in 10 years because he was marching with Dr. Martin Luther King. And his children and his family were so upset with him, they wouldn't even go see him in a nursing home, but yet I talked them into it. And the money that he gave me, for me and his insurance policy, gave it to his children and made sure it was signed over to them. Called 911 on the nursing home, jumped on his lap in a wheelchair, and I said, I'm not leaving you here today, not like this. I barely knew him. But yet he fell so in love with me. What was so beautiful about it was when he would see me come in the room, he would cry. And he made me promise him that I would tell the whole world that you can do all the marching you want. You can work for as many people as you want to. But none of that's going to do you no good when you're busy with all your drinking and smoking and doing drugs and eating the wrong foods, and you laying on your back and you can't move, and someone has to change your pamper. Every single thing that you've done, all that marching with Martin Luther King that he's done was futile because not one so-called friend came to see him in the nursing home. Oh, people popped in every now and then, don't get me wrong. But it was nothing like a total stranger that was sent like an angel by his bedside to give the world this message. So here we are, stuck in this bubble, right? Where so many people between 30 and 50, 60 and above is really dying off. But between 30 and 60 is stuck in this bubble as if they still want to be in college. So everyone's drinking and smoking because it's a crutch. So everyone's on some type of, 90% of the population is on some type of pill or some type of drug. Why? Because you still refuse to face the music of looking deep within yourself and healing the pains of yesterday, the pains of grandma and mom and grandpa. And stop blaming yourself for the things that you had no control over and take back your birthright. And your first birthright is knowledge of self. Very deep and very profound. That we're living in a time of change. Well, the earth has already shifted. Times have already changed. But yet so many people are still stuck in a bubble and they can't see the bigger picture. Because everyone's stuck in this low vibration of this root chakra where everyone wants to twerk. Twerk is like a skunk flagging their tail like a dog humping. Look at me. I need attention. Look at me. Because this is all I have to offer. From this lower vibrational chakra, I have nothing else to offer. Because when it comes to thinking for myself or getting to my crown chakra, my third eye is closed. Because I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of the darkness within me. I'm afraid that if we turn on the flashlight, what we may see in the attic, what we may see within the cobwebs of the mind, of the heart, body, and spirit. So it's easier for me not to look within myself. It's easier for me to look outside of me and to blame my sister or blame my brother who is just an extension of me. It's easier for me to blame my past hurts and my past pains. It's easier for me to blame everything outside of me and point the finger for everything outside of me for what has happened to me. Instead of me doing better for myself, instead of me being an example to my children, to my bloodline. So here it is. I figure I've done everything in my power to love, to do right, and even if I felt I was wrong, I still apologize. No matter what. Never too vain to apologize. And if someone misunderstood me, I did my best to try to get them to understand. I've been lied on. I've been falsely accused. I've been mistreated. I was a black sheep of the family. I was hated on. I was ostracized. I was pushed away. I didn't have the power of the media to help me when I was being lied on because they were trying to cover up a lie. But all I had was a power that was within me to take every single thing that has happened to me and do everything within my power to turn that around for the better. Because what I've been through would have killed most of you. And for most of you, you would have lost your mind and never come back. And although this was their claim at one point in time, I have learned that the reason that they claim that someone is mentally ill is because It's easier to claim that someone is mentally ill, so that way, when they come forward with the truth, no one believes them. But it's very deep, even what I've discovered and learned, even in a mental institution. This is where some of the most brilliant minds that have ever existed in all of the cosmos reside. And what was even more profound about it was funny, because when I left there, the entire staff, even the residents that were there, all stood at attention as I left and greeted me and clapped for me as I left, because they were so happy that I was getting out and being granted the rites of passage to be able to plead my case. Very profound. Because when people hear one thing about you, especially when someone's pointing the finger at you, telling you to stay away from someone, those are the very people that you should look at and find out, why are they telling me to stay away from that person? There must be something great about them that someone's trying to block me from hearing about this person, and I need to know what it is, because we're all supposed to have our own mind to think for ourselves, not based off what someone else has told us, but we've all become guilty of this. I may not have always been the best mom or the best girlfriend, but I can tell you one thing's for sure. To this day, I'm friends with all of my exes. Every single last one of them. I can call them up right now and we talk as friends and help each other out, make each other laugh. We don't leave on sour notes like, I hate you, I never want to talk to you again, I wish you died. No, we don't do it. We don't get down like that. But they will tell you that they do have other relationships that they get down like that with, but not me. Why? Because every single thing is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. And although I was in relationships, and in a relationship with an individual that called themselves a grand sheik, and I was a grand sheikess, I was told that I could not speak. And when I did speak, they stood back in the room and they talked about me and said that I had a forked tongue and a sharp tongue, and made me feel very ashamed of myself for being myself and for speaking up. But yet this is what my ancestors have showed me, the power within me, and showed me that we have transitioned from a patriarchal society to a matriarchal society. And those old keys no longer fit these new locks. So anyone, especially when she is a divine feminine, is threatened by her power, because she is the universal flow. And this is why hurricanes exist and volcanoes exist and earthquakes exist, because she controls the weather merely by her state of consciousness. When she speaks, it is so. When she thinks, it will be. What she thinks, it is created by the power of her own thought, her own mind, her own actions, because she knows that thoughts become things and words have energy and power. One thing that I will say about this divine feminine, that I am empowered to be all that I am and all that I have come here to be. I don't know your story. I know my story. So many people have decided to write my story and tell my story for me. But those are all runoff copies of who they perceive me to be at the time of them thinking that they knew me, yet they knew me not. I am the Christ of Christ consciousness. I am the bride in which the church spoke of that would return. Without spots, without blemishes, and without wrinkles, because I have done that inner work and I have learned knowledge of self is key. But there is no knowledge of self without love of self. without putting in that inner work, without doing that inner work to love yourself. So you will be able to vibrate at a specific capacity to where all your chakras are aligned. And your Merkaba, which is your ship, of you knowing that you are the alien, of you knowing that you are that highly evolved being, knowing that you are that predator with the antennas within your hair, as your subconscious mind is a recorder, as your eyes are the video camera, to the Akashic records that you hold deep within your being. This is what they were talking about when they said that there will be many witnesses. It is not outside of you. The many witnesses are you, your many selves. And this is so profound because this is even the metaphor of the Tower of Babel. The languages amongst the beings of the land were confused, not because the languages were different type of foreign languages, but because they were different levels of spirituality. And this is why you have to know that this is why there was no top at the tower, at the top of the Tower of Babel. Why? Because you cannot box in and cage in spirituality. Spirituality is free. When they say that we have free will, the next time you hear that, I want you to question, do we really? When we all are still paying for the pains of our past life, as well as the pains of the karma in which we have created today. Even up to this very second, we are living out the karma in which we have created. Whatever we have done unto others, we have done unto ourselves. We are here to leave a legacy. And that league of C is seeing the league within yourselves. To pass it down to your generation, to not silence a child, but to allow a child to be, to explore their gifts of being who they have come here to be, because children are alone to us. Children are an extension of us. And if you don't have any children, regardless of who you are, it still always stems back to you having the balance of yin and yang, positive and negative, good and bad, light and dark, lower self and higher self, the middle, and follow the 42 laws of Mayat. And know that when all is said and done, you have done everything within all of your heart, mind, body, and soul to be the best version of you that you have come here to be, by first judging yourself for your own behavior and your own actions, and resonating and vibrating at such a high capacity that you don't have time to look outside of you at any negativity, at what someone else is doing. But yet you're constantly doing that inner work within yourself, so that way you can evolve. To be that light. And to be that darkness. But yet meet in the middle to find balance. And this is why even the twin flame journey has been so important. Because even the twin flames know the importance of the balance of the purity within spirit, which is the cherubim of the Shekinah glory. We are all highly evolved beings. We have forgotten who we are. Now it's time to remember. Just like Neo in the Matrix had to awaken himself. Only you can awaken yourself. And no matter how many times the Oracle, he asked the Oracle who he was, The oracle could never tell him because it took him looking within himself to have knowledge of self, to come to a reason of that understanding, a knowing, to stand in the knowing of who Neo was in the Matrix. Even in the times of jacking in and jacking out of the Matrix. Is it worth that drink? Just to drown yourself in the tears tonight? Because you're afraid to face yourself? And when they said, Carol Ann, don't go into the light. Because they knew that everything first was cultivated in the knowing that everything, especially your inner healing, was going to come from the darkness. The darkness of the depth of the inner being of you, to know thyself. And even in the granting that my ancestors have granted myself, to be able to be the owner of the oracle, which is spelled A-U-R-A-K-A-A-H-L, the oracle. And all the symbols that you see surrounding the outside of the coin is a symbol of the planets, our planetary alignment, our planetary star system. We are all the planets and above. You are not just your sun, moon, rising, Venus. You are Neptune, you are Mercury, you are Lilith. You are all that you have come here to be. And because you are all that you have come here to be, it is important for you to be. You must walk in the knowing of all that you know. But yet, in order for you to know, you must first go within the space of discovery and be willing to experience the dark night of the soul to heal thyself. Because you are your greatest medicine. But yet you must stand in this knowing unapologetically. Think on these things, beloved. In the meantime, in between time, have a beautiful, magical moment in time. Nubian Divine.
At a trunk, help me write this. Book of Enoch, Strother Thompson. My frequencies are in alliance. I'm elegance, call me your highness. Your sigil is my sacred science. Akashic records, I'm enlightened. Yeah, I rock, I'm meta science. My chalice is my heart's design. I manifest, I heal, I'm rhyming. 2D regulate alignment. Can we all get along? I think this is